Today I'm going to teach you a little bit about how I began to realize how important resilience was in my life. And perhaps part of my story can be a teachable moment for each of yours. Now I'm going to use slides from the 1776 Katie and Peter Kreitler magazine collection. The slides are designed to punctuate my story. Every one of us has a story to tell. Your story is important. The person sitting next to you, their story is important. Collectively, our history in the United States is the story of our people, of resilience from all races, religions, and cultures. Resilience has been bred into who we are as a people. My story is a little more simple. I'm going to talk about work, family, retirement, and education. Schooling didn't help me much for the Punjab of India, but it was a life lesson, perhaps the most important time in my life. I work with Hindu, Sikh, and Christian traditions. The problem was, I had a big curveball. I came down with malaria, food poisoning, and dysentery. I lost 40 pounds and had to come home. I get home, and to a great welcome, I got drafted. The Vietnam War was calling. Well, what did I do? I went back up to Brown, and I had my fourth sophomore year coming. One in high school, one in prep school, two in college. Sophomore slump. So while I was up there, I realized that I better do some studies again. So I majored in sociology, I minored in the history of religion, and anthropology. Now, I ask you, what career path does that lead to? Not much. I couldn't get into med school. I wasn't smart enough to get into law school. I couldn't get into business school, so what did I do? What did I do? I applied to seminary to become a priest. And sure enough, I got accepted, and you ready for this? On academic probation. Never even heard of the term. Never even knew it existed. That was the second time I'd been told that my intellectual ability was not that hot. So I ended up in Alexandria, Virginia, across from Washington, D.C. I graduated with a master's degree. I got basically A's while I was there. But again, once again, true to form, what did I do? I flunked my PhD exam. End of education, finally, I was done. So I had to get a job. So in 1969, I was hired by a church in Kansas City, Missouri. My children were born there. I was a priest of the church. I was ordained in 1970. I had a youth group. As a matter of fact, the best job ever. No status, no oversight. Who in their right mind wanted to be a youth minister? Nobody. So I did it, and I loved it. For example, we had a group of 13 to 15-year-olds. They went to Allendale by Jingo in the middle of Kansas in midwinter, and I went with a smile. And today, I am proud to say that one of those 15-year-olds is right there. He is now 68. My wife and I had our third child. 7-pound, 2-ounce girl, born dead. You talk about a curveball. That was powerful. That was powerful. So, I was beginning to build some resiliency to this pattern that was developing. So, the surprise came. I got a call from Southern California, and a gentleman says to me, "Would you like to come to a parish on 32 acres with a school and a church 1.5 miles from the Pacific Ocean, and it was 75 degrees on that cold January day in Kansas City. I said, and I thought to myself, the Pinto station wagon is packed, and I'm off to Disneyland. I'm going to be a preacher again, now in Kansas City, and I'm going to start a youth group. Once again, I'm going to start it now in California. And I learned one thing in the first one. You want to have CPR when you start a youth group. I have 2 of them. CPR, what's it stand for? Giving breath to somebody. Giving breath to a youth group, you have to have creativity, patience, and resilience. But curveballs came right away when I came to Southern California. My 2 bosses resigned. Gone. I'm there by myself. Secondly, the church burns to the ground. My little beautiful A-frame California church burns, everything gone in it. The third curveball. My wife of 16 years says, Peter, I want a divorce. I hit the trifecta. Bang, 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 gone. What could get worse? What could get worse? Well, a little while later, I was playing squash with a friend of mine. Did anybody know what squash is? It's a racquetball game. We took a break to have a drink of water. He's sitting opposite me, we're chatting. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and there was terror in his face. Abject terror. I'd never seen it before, my entire career as a priest. He looks at me, I look at him, and he goes, oh my gosh! He threw his head back. I jumped up, I slapped him in the face. Rick, wake up, wake up. I got him on the floor, I administered CPR. I called the paramedics. They came and put paddles on his chest. Rick, gone in an instant at age 47 in my arms. I was broken, I was bent, but I did not collapse. Then I realized upon reflection that it's better to be a palm tree than an oak tree. Why? Because an oak tree is rigid, and if the winds of change come or the winds of destruction come, that oak tree will snap like a twig. But a palm tree, what does it do? Bends in the wind, bends in the wind. And that's what my life was becoming. I was recognizing that I was not getting defeated by this, but I was able to bend. And that's my intact family on my 75th birthday. What a blessing. But my life also changed. I resigned parish work. Enough of working in the church. I formed a nonprofit to work on environmental issues. And one of the great things we did is we created the Great LA Cleanup. And John Quigley, environmental activist, and I had the pleasure of going up in the Goodyear blimp 3 times in the 3 years we did the Great LA Cleanup. And then I worked with Alexandra Paul, who was my co-host on a television environmental talk show. And she was fabulous. She's a Baywatch actress, by the way. She happened to be one of the original ones. This is what happened professionally. But personally, Katie and I explored the globe. And what we discovered was it was eye-opening to us, and that we are all one on this fragile island earth, our home. We're all one. Wherever we went, we felt that. We had a wonderful life together. Our day-to-day life was special. We had a co-equal partnership. We traveled a lot, and then we decided to go to Hawaii for our 36th wedding anniversary. Katie was not the same when we were there. She wasn't the same. So we came home after a week. We went to the doctors. They sat us down. They turned to us and said, Katie and Peter, we have challenging news. What's that? Katie, you have stage 4 small cell lung cancer metastasized to your brain and your bones. My jaw dropped. No, not Katie. And then the unimaginable, the unthinkable. This vibrant, beautiful, 72-year-old, generous, considerate of others, died in 50 days. I was holding her in my arms when she was dying. I was kissing on her lips when she took her last breath. What a beautiful way to say goodbye to a special relationship. It marked a wonderful marriage, but so sudden. So sudden. I never felt such pain in my life. I know the 5 stages of grief. As a priest, I've buried probably hundreds of people. But the deep sadness is not in those 5 stages. And that's what marked it for me, that deep and abiding sadness. And all of our friends were in shock. Why? Because they expected this old goat of 80 years old, with all his health issues, was expected to go first. I have a baker's dozen of doctors. I have a pacemaker, a new valve, a watchman. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I shoot up in my arm 4 times a day with insulin. In 2005, cancer visited me and said hello. And cancer has never said goodbye. I've had 17 years of 3 kinds of cancer: mantle cell lymphoma, bladder cancer, prostate cancer. And as I stand before you today, I am taking treatment for all 3 simultaneously. People say to me, "Peter, why are you still here?" And then they always answer for me when they ask me that question. Well, you have a higher purpose. You know, you're a person of faith. Well, let me tell you something, folks. My God is not a jack-in-the-box. I can't call God up and say, do what a genie does and pop out and give me a hand on command. My God doesn't work that way. I'm not special. I'm not different than any of you. Stuff happens, and there's another word for it in the vernacular. Stuff happens to all of us. And so I'm inviting each of you today to find your path to resilience. And I'm going to give you 6 hints. These are my 6. Number 1, tears are nature's way of saying we are human. When I cry, I go in the shower. I let the healing water come over me. And it's also private. And I can express the grief in the deepest form possible, and nobody can hear me. Number 2, be kind. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. Everyone knows I'm hurting with illness, and I know plenty others are. But when I reach out to them and give them a hug or an affirmation, I'm healing myself simultaneously. Number 3, no person is a self-made person. I don't know anybody. We have to be reliant on others, period. Number 4, we have to have a resolve, a determination, like a boxer. What does it do? A boxer knocks the other boxer down, they get up, knock down again. Resolution, being resolved. And number 5, this is really important because in our culture, we're having to deal with this a lot. We may feel like failures sometime. I've certainly flunked out in life enough times to know that. Exams may fail. Ideas may fail. Relationships may fail. Jobs may fail. It's happened to me, every one of them. But I'm not a failure. Neither are you. No one is a failure. Counterintuitive, right? We always think, everybody tells us we learn from experience. No, we don't, folks. We learn from reflecting upon our experiences. That's where we learn from. In December of 1941, published the flag in black and white because Pearl Harbor had happened and our country was in the pits. It's like after 9/11, for some of you young people. Pearl Harbor had the same effect on our country. But then what did they do? They published the flag in color 7 months later, because in that interim, our country had rallied. We were working together. We had a common purpose. I've had a lot of shades of gray in my life. And I've also had a lot of really dark moments in my life. However, resilience has restored the color in my life. So the truth. This magazine is one of my favorites from my collection. I have 5,000 magazines with the American flag on the cover. This is from 1898. The truth of the story is, when you walk your pathway, remember the 5 R's. See if we can remember the 5 R's. Reliance on others, personal resolve, self-reflection, and then a new word that I'm offering right now, restorative resilience. You got them? Got the 5 R's? Forget reading, writing, and arithmetic. Remember these. The truth of our pathway forward may just rely on how much we remember those. And we close with this slide. United we stand. Wouldn't it be amazing if we stood united in this country? What we could accomplish? So we want to stand united as a community, united as people. And if that happens, the resiliency that we experience will become as bright as Old Glory with the sun shining through on a beautiful, warm, sunny day. Thank you. Okay.